Good morning. Today's Mishna Brura continues when do you take off your tefillin? Uvayom sheyesh bo sefer Torah, on a day in which there is a Torah scroll, in other words, when we take out the Torah, nohagim, we have the custom, shelo lachaltseim, to not take them off, ad shiach ziru sefer Torah, until we return, or they return the sefer Torah, v'yanichehu, and rest it or place it. Baheichal. Heichal means literally the sanctuary, but what it means here is the ark. So we don't take off the tefillin until they've put the Torah back in the ark. Yeramor continues, V'hainu b'makom shemachnisin haTorah, and that is the in the place where they bring in the Torah la'achar uva letzion goel, after the prayer of uva letzion goel. Aval lefi minag medinot elu, but according to the custom of these countries, in other words, according to the Ashkenazi custom, shemachnisin haTorah miyad le'achar hakriya, that we bring the Torah back in immediately after reading it. So that's what we do in the Ashkenazi custom. We finish reading the Torah, we put it back in the ark, and then we continue with the service. Whereas in some other customs, they finish reading the Torah, continue with the service, and then put the Torah back in the ark. And then in such cases, we put the Torah in immediately, ein lechaltzem kumo b'shar hayamim. Then do not take them off, rak, only like the other days. In other words, so then Torah reading is not going to be different. The later point is actually after taking out the Torah. In other words, what the Mechaber is saying is, in places where you tend to put away the Torah only after the otherwise earliest time for taking off your tefillin, we'll go after the later time of putting away the Torah. However, in the Ashkenazi countries, where putting away the Torah comes before, so we'll follow the regular standard later, earliest time for taking off the tefillin. B'yom Rosh Chodesh, on Rosh Chodesh, choltzin otam kodem tfilat musaf. We take them off before the tefillah of musaf, before the extra amidah that we say for Rosh Chodesh. We'll see more on that, why it is in the Mishnah Brura. The Ramah says, V'hu hadin b'chol hamu'ed. V'hu hadin, literally, that is the law, but it means the same thing. Same thing. That is the same law on Chol HaMoed. V'davka b'makom she'omrim musaf kedushat keter. And this davka would apply in a place where they say in musaf the kedusha of keter. I'll tell you more about that in a minute in the Mishnah Brura. Mihu, however, nohagin lasalkem kodem musaf b'chol makom. Nevertheless, we have the custom to take them off before musaf in every place, even when we don't say keter. Now, just to note that the Mechaber doesn't speak about Chol HaMoed, because according to the custom of the Sfaradim, they don't put tefillin on Chol HaMoed at all, so there's no question of when do you take them off. In the Ashkenazi custom that we do put tefillin on Chol HaMoed, then the question is when do we take them off? So the answer is we take them off before Musaf. Within the Amidah, there is the Kedusha, the Kadosh, Kadosh, Kadosh that we say in the Chazan's repetition of the Amidah, and there are different texts of that, and some of the versions begin with the word Keter Yitnu Lacha, where Hashem will give you a crown. That's what he's speaking about here. I must point out that this isn't our custom of saying Kedusha, but we'll see more on that in a second also. To the Mishnah Brura. Ad Shachzura, until we return the Torah to the Ark. Remez Ladavar, a hint to the matter, nice way to remember it. V'avor malkam lifneihem, the king will pass before them. Hainu Sefer Torah. V'Hashem barasham, and Hashem is at their head. So that, in other words, is the tefillin. So when the king will pass, the Sefer Torah will pass before them. Hashem is still on their heads. In other words, as long as they got the Torah, you got your tefillin. And you'll put it on until you put the Torah in the ark. V'acholtzan kodem. Now, what if somebody took off his tefillin before they put the Torah away? Al kol panim. Al kol panim means at the very least. Yizaher, he should be careful. Shelo yachlotz hashel rosh bifnei Sefer Torah. To not take off the head tefillin in front of the Sefer Torah. Why? Kedei shelo yigale rosho b'faneha. In order not to bare his head before it. B'faneha, literally in its face, but it means before it, before her, the Torah. Ele yistalek litzdadin. Rather, he should remove, in other words, remove himself. Litzdadin, tzad is a side, to the side. So move to the side to take off your tefillin if you have to, but don't stand before the Torah without tefillin. Uveshel yad, with your hand tefillin. Deleka, there is not, an Aramaic word, gilui revelation, revealed. The hand tefillin is not revealed, it's under your sleeve, it's covered by the box. Or betfillin shel rosh tachat talit gadol, or if your tefillin, if your head tefillin are covered by your talis, sharei, it is permitted. Another Aramaic word. Musaf, take off the tefillin before Musaf. Acha shechzira sefer Torah v'heichel, after they have returned the Torah to the ark. Uvim komotenu shemachnisin techef achar hakriya, and in our places that we bring the Torah in immediately after we have read it, yachaltzaim achar hakadish shekodem tefillat Musaf. You will take off your tefillin after the kaddish that comes before the davening of Musaf. Uve Eliyahu Rabba Kativ, and in Eliyahu Rabba it says, he's one of the great halachic authorities, that on Rosh Chodesh take it off after the Kedusha of Uvalatzion. In other words, within the saying of Uvalatzion itself, you'll pause and take off your tefillin. Don't wait until after Kaddish, in order not to break or interrupt between Kaddish and davening. So that's one of the things we want to do, is minimize that gap, which we'll see more of in a second. It's the same thing on Chol HaMoed, that you will take off your tefillin before Musaf. The later authorities wrote, Kevan, since Yesh Omrim Shelo Lehaniach Klal b'Chol HaMoed, some say we do not put tefillin on at all on Chol HaMoed, Kedla Kaman Siman Lamed Aleph, as we see later on. Yimaher lachal tzam kodem halel. You should hurry to take them off before halel. V'hashatz achar halel. However, the shaliach tzibur will take them off after halel. So in other words, we don't wait all the way until after Musaf, but actually right after the Amidah, before halel, will take it off. But the shaliach tzibur, the one leading the davening, will take it off only after halel. V'chol HaMoed shel Sukkot, however, in Chol HaMoed of Sukkot, sheyesh panai, that there is free time, ba'od shemamtinim ala etrog, whilst we are still waiting. Mamtin is to wait, whilst we are waiting for the etrog. So in other words, while everyone's getting their lulav and etrog together, af hashatz yachalot kodem halal, even the shliach tzibur will take his tefillin off before halal. So on Pesach, we'll take our tefillin off immediately after the Amidah, but the shliach tzibur will keep them on so as not to delay us. Whereas Sukkot, there's going to be a delay anyway, so he'll take off his tefillin before halal also. And noagin lilbosh kol hayom, those who have the custom to wear tefillin the entire day, yachzor v'yilbash b'rosh chodesh achar tefillat musaf, will return and put on their tefillin after davening musaf. Ve'in tzarich lachzor ulevarech im yadato lezeh v'shat chilitzatan. You do not need to go back and say a new bracha if you had in mind to do this when you took them off. As we saw a couple of days ago, the Chol HaMoed don't actually put them on at all. What about people who put on Rabbeinu Tam tefillin? Again, on Chol HaMoed you don't put them on at all. On Rosh Chodesh you can put them on after the Shliach Tzibur has finished Musaf. Or Shiasiru HaTefillin Shel Rashi Kodem Uvalatzion V'Shel Rabbeinu Tam Yilbashu Beit Amirat Uvalatzion. Or what you should do is take off Rashi Tefillin before Uvalatzion, and you'll put on Rabbeinu Tam Tefillin when we say Uvalatzion. This whole idea of Rashi and Rabbeinu Tam Tefillin is something we'll deal with later on. We're not going to spend too much time on it now. Kedushat Keter, the Kedusha that begins with Keter. Perish, the explanation is, B'makom sha'anu omrim nekadesh b'musaf, the place where we say nekadesh in musaf, omrim b'katzat makomot keter yitnu. In some places they say they will give you a crown, keter yitnu lacha, to you. L'chein ein nachon liot az keter shel tefillin alav. Therefore it's not appropriate to have the crown of tefillin on us. In other words, when we are saying to Hashem, we will give you a crown, so we are emphasizing that Hashem is the king. We are not the king, so it would be inappropriate for us to continue wearing our crown, which is tefillin. So that's why we take it off before the phrase where we're going to say, Hashem, we will give you a crown. Now the question is, two questions. Number one, so why do we take it off for the silent Amidah before we declare and giving Hashem the crown? And number two, in the customs like what we have, where we don't say, Hashem, we're giving you a crown, why would we take off our tefillin? So he says, Ve'afilu ba'et tfilat lachash. even at the time of the silent Amidah, we would take off our tefillin. And it's obvious that if you forgot to take off your tefillin and you started davening musaf with your tefillin on, don't take them off in the middle of the Amidah. It's just a custom. It's not such a big deal that you take off your tefillin, but that is what we do. The Ramah pointed out that we do this in every place. The Taz wrote, if somebody doesn't take off his tefillin for musaf, there is no complaint against him. We can't say, he's doing something wrong. There's no room to criticize him. Since we don't actually say the kedusha of keter, so we kind of do it almost in sympathy with those who do say keter, because it connects to the idea of keter, but we're not actually saying it. So it's hard to say it's enforceable. V'shamati al gadol hador echad, and I heard about one of the great men of the generation, shelo yachol tzam b'musaf, that he didn't actually take off his tefillin for musaf for this reason. However, somebody who is davening with a community should certainly not change the custom of the community. In other words, if everyone else is taking off their tefillin for musaf, so you can come along and say, you know what, we don't really say keter, and there's no good reason why we shouldn't have tefillin on. Okay, so you're 100% right. Nevertheless, that's not what the community does, and you should keep ranks with the custom and observances of the community. That's it, a little bit shorter for today. Have a wonderful day.